Well, hi everyone. Welcome to all who connect to this introduction of our self-knowledge course. Today we are going to introduce this self-knowledge course in which we are going to see very interesting topics related to the awakening of consciousness and the development of our spirituality. Let's wait just 1 minute for more people to join the live broadcast, and so we can share these videos in the different groups so more people can join this. Just give me 1 second. So, starting today, we will be broadcasting every Sunday at the same time, and we are going to be dealing with very interesting topics so that we can achieve self-knowledge. In this course, we're going to be talking about what is death, about astral projection. We are going to be learning how to achieve astral projection. We are going to talk about energy and how we can make a wise use of our energy. We are going to talk about also the evolution and the involution of our soul in this wheel of samsara. We are going to be talking about sexuality and how to make a wise use of our sexual energy, and about how can we change ourselves, how we can work on our own psychology so we can make transcendental changes within ourselves, and everything focused on getting to know ourselves. So if you have any comment or any question, you can write it down in the chat, and at the end of the explanation of this introduction, we will be sharing your comments and we will be solving all your questions. Let me see. Well, I think everything is correct with the broadcast, so we can start. I wanted to start these live broadcasts to transmit a knowledge that I have received and practiced, and that has led me to experience the reality of many things that tends to remain as just questions for many people who don't know the techniques to access, to find the direct answers to many of knowns of life. Some of us maybe that at some point we maybe have wondered what is the reason of our existence, or what happens when we die, or if there really are more dimensions, and if we can really experience them, maybe, or probably you have heard about astral projection, and maybe you want to know how to do that, how you can experience the reality of the fifth dimension. Maybe you have heard about meditation and you have tried, but you haven't achieved a great or a right meditation. Or maybe we are actually asking ourselves how to awaken our consciousness, or maybe we are asking ourselves if there really are past life, etc. And the interesting thing about this course is that it's not about giving you concepts that you must believe just because I tell you so. But on the contrary, everything that we are going to see and deal with will be totally practical. We are going to see the techniques and the practices to get to experience all this knowledge that we are going to be receiving directly by ourselves. Since truly what I can tell you, or whatever people can tell you, it's going to be just a concept for you until you already experience that by yourself, until you verify that by yourself. So that is why everything that we are going to deal with is going to be based on self-knowledge. It means that it will be focused on experiencing things in a direct and a personal way, and to use all that information and all those investigations to really get to know ourselves. Today, we are going to make an introduction to this self-knowledge course. We are going to explain what knowledge of oneself is about, what is the objective of getting to really know ourselves, and we are going to make a preamble of some of the topics that we are going to be touching in this cycle of 50 talks or 50 conferences that we are going to be broadcasting through this page every Sunday at the same time. So let us start by talking a bit about what is to know yourself. Let me see this. Since many people believe and have told me that they know themselves, but what is knowing oneself? We think that we know ourselves because we know our name, we know our nationality, we know our gender, our age, our hobbies, our professions, our behaviors, our personality. But comes to happen that this little information we hold about ourselves is just a very tiny part of what we really are. It is just what we think we are. But if we ask ourselves, where do we come from? And not our nationality, but where our soul and our spirit come from, or where we were before we were born, and before all the times that we were born. If we ask ourselves, where are we going? What is the objective of our existence? What do we live for? If we sincerely ask ourselves these questions, we could realize that when we are talking about what or who we are internally, about that immortal part that inhabits us, that is our essence, we truly know little or nothing. The interesting thing about all this is that the answer to all these questions and even the knowledge of the entire universe and its gods, we will only find when we get to know ourselves. And that is precisely written in the Temple of Apollo at Delphi in Greece. And it says, "Man, know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods." So we see that since ancient times, and really in all cultures of the past, that still has a deep connection with their own energy, with their own divinity, they had clarity about the fact that all wisdom about the internal worlds of the planet Earth and of the solar system and of the universe is found within ourselves. When we get to know our inner world, when we get rid of all we are not, and we fully develop our essence, our true being. And how can we achieve, or how can we access all that vast knowledge that is hidden, let's say, within ourselves? Well, we must begin by understanding that although we believe that we are only this physical body, because it's the only part in us that we can experience with our five physical senses, actually we are made up of three parts, as we can see here. The first of these parts is the physical body, and we all know it's made from matter, and it is our vehicle of manifestation. Of manifestation in this third dimension. Although we know that we have a physical body, we are largely unaware of how it is composed and how it works internally. Even the most advanced scientists are unaware of all the complex functioning of a physical body. But as we currently are so disconnected of our internal part, for being so fascinated with this external world and all its illusions, many of us don't know that we are also a soul and a spirit. And even though we spend much more time living in this inner world, because we live all day within our mind, within our feelings, and when we go to sleep, we continue to live within ourselves, we remain ignorant of the reality of our internal world. Our soul, which is that second part that composed us, is made of energy, and it is that energy that our body uses to function, to move, to think, to feel, to create, and that is also now being used to process all the desires that we constantly have. And we can easily perceive that this energy that moves within us daily is being exhausted very quickly, and we are not able to save it. We are not able to use it or to channel it correctly or wisely for higher purposes. And this is because our soul, that comprises 97% of our essence, is currently contaminated, conditioned by all our negative ways of being that manifest themselves in our mind, in our emotion, in our sex, and when we talk and when we act. Every negative thought, and we keep thousands and thousands of negative thoughts throughout the day of all kinds, are wasting by wrongly using our energy. Also, every negative emotion, be it liking or disliking, our emotions of stress, of anxiety, of anguish, etc., are wasting by wrongly using our emotional energy. Every time we speak unnecessary things, or when we reach physical fatigue, it's because all our wrong ways of being, all our wrong ways of speaking in this case and acting, are misusing our energy. Also, every time we draw our powerful sexual energy out of our body for the sole purpose of satisfying our lustful desires, our energy is being misused because each of our negative ways of being are feeding on it to grow, and therefore it is increasingly difficult for us to abandon our bad habits and our wrong ways of being. We are so unconscious right now just because almost all our essence is trapped, is conditioned by each of our negative ways of being, which we can call our psychological defects, or we can call our psychological selves or I's. And we are going to see that when we learn, and we are going to learn about this in this course, to eliminate all those conditioning that currently trap our essence, when we begin to release it, when we begin to release our essence, our energy, and we begin to channel it wisely, we will start awakening. And it turns out that in that third part that makes us up, which is our spirit or our consciousness, is where we will find that inner master, that guru who will guide us throughout this process to achieve self-knowledge. Maybe some of you have been asking, where can I find a master? Where can I find a spiritual director? And actually it is within yourself, and you are going to learn how we can connect with that inner wisdom. Our spirit, is the 3% of free and conscious essence. It is actually the divine wisdom within us. It is the part in us of free and awakened consciousness, which doesn't belong to time and never passes away. It is that true and eternal being in us, and that's what we really are. But we forget that we are, because we are identified with our personality and with all our different ways of being. Our spirit is actually an endless source of wisdom, of love, and power. And by discovering this part in us, we will find that true and that faithful guidance to go through this process to reach self-knowledge and to get free that 97% of trapped consciousness and merge it to that 3% so we can make us more and more conscious during the process. That is what this knowledge is about. It's about to slowly penetrate in that mysterious and wonderful world called oneself. And to do so, to deepen within ourselves, we must study the 4 pillars of wisdom, which are science, psychology, art, and mysticism, but focused on inner knowledge. Now let's explain a little bit about each pillar so you understand how they can help you to get to know yourself. In the pillar of science, we will see that just as science or as external science is based on the direct experimentation of the different phenomena of nature to arrive at its verification. In the same way, internal science, conscious science, also seeks through methods and techniques to reach the verification of the reality of our inner nature, of our inner world. So, in this course, we are going to learn different tools and different techniques to experience and personally verify all those things that still remain as mysteries about the world, about the universe, and about the existence and about ourselves. So in many of our talks, we will be talking about, for example, astral projection, as I said, and about transcendental meditation, to learn to explore the superior dimensions of nature. With the astral unfolding or astral projection, we can explore the 5th dimension of nature, and with transcendental meditation we can explore the 6th and the 7th dimension. And this is quite important, because if we learn to use these tools, if we learn to achieve, for example, astral projection at will, we will be able to investigate anything. For example, next Sunday we will be talking about death. We will be talking about what is death and what happens when we die, about the different types of death that exist, about the judgments that the soul has to go through every time our physical body die. We are going to be talking about past lives, and we don't have to stay with just the theoretical information and settle for believing or not believing because it sounds logical or not, or because it adapts or not to what we have heard or to what we have read before, or because of it adapts or not to what is socially or religiously accepted as the real thing or as the right thing. Instead, we can consciously unfold ourselves to the astral plane and ask the part of wisdom of our consciousness, that is our inner father, to show us, for example, what happens when the physical body dies, or what happened the last time we die, or to show us if we have really had past lives. And there we will be able to corroborate firsthand the information that we are receiving in this course. But this is not all that we can investigate. We can really investigate as we develop these techniques of the inner science, anything. Of course, this will require overcoming our mental and our physical laziness, our bad will, our skepticism, and it will also require personal merits. It will require inner purification and saving of our energy so that our investigations can be increasingly clear and deep. But also, we are going to learn how to achieve perfect concentration and relaxation. We are going to learn about reflective meditation, which is something like very, very important. I actually like that meditation a lot. And we are going to learn about retrospection, about karma negotiation and cancellation, among many other practices that will lead us to be able to know our inner reality and to experience it directly. That's the pillar of science. Now, let's talk a little about the pillar of art. And in this pillar, in art, we are not going to be talking about that external art that can lead us to create a great external piece of art. But we are going to be talking about an internal art that will lead us to achieve the greatest creation that a man can do, which is the creation of himself. That is doing the creation of the 7 bodies that will allow us to have a proper representation in the different dimensions of nature. As I said before, we are going to learn and experience through astral projection the reality of the 5th dimension, and we need to know that actually we only have a principle of astral body, and that principle is what led us to make brief astral unfoldings, brief astral research. And with this principle of astral body that we all have is with whom we can dream daily. But once we have internally created our solar astral body, we will be able to consciously unfold at will every time we go to sleep. And these creations can be made as we begin to develop, which is the art of the sexuality, by practicing the suprasexuality. That's what we are going to be learning in this pillar of art. With this practice, we will regenerate our physical body, which is actually in a degenerated condition, in a lunar condition. We are also going to regenerate our vital bodies. Body. And why do I say regenerate? Because we already have them fully created. We already have a physical and a vital body, but we need to regenerate them because they are actually in a lunar condition. And when doing this practice, that is the first thing we're going to do. We're going to regenerate those bodies, the physical and the vital one. And later on, we are going to create our astral body so we can move in the astral plane at will. So we have a proper representation in that astral plane or 5th dimension. But we are going to create ourselves a mental body, later a causal body. And when doing these 5 creations, when having those 5 solar bodies, we will be able to join the bodic and the atmic bodies. those you can see here. But we will talk about this topic of the 7 bodies later in detail. The thing is that we are going to achieve this by learning to make a wise use of our sexual energy. We are going to learn in this course a higher form of sexuality than the one we currently know, a form of sexuality that will turn sexual practice into a deep meditation in which we will connect with our own divinity while developing true love for our partner, since he or she will be the one who will help us connect with all the power of our creative energy. We are going to be talking several times about sexuality, about about how to make a wise use of the creative power of our sexual energy, and also we'll be talking about how to purify our sexual energy. Anyway, I want to explain to you how the procedure for the suprasexual practice is, so that we can understand how it is, so we can encourage ourselves to practice it, to see the wonderful changes that will take place not only in the couple's relationship, that will be like getting it better, because when starting to practice this, you are going to get to understand what making love is really about. And but also we are going to see the changes that are going to take place within ourselves, physical and psychologically. And let me explain to you how is that we are going to make the practice of the suprasexuality, which is the practice of the sexual transmutation. Maybe you have heard about that. With this practice, what we are going to do is that we are going to begin to make a wise use of the power of our sexual energy. The objective of this sexual practice that I'm going to explain to you will be to raise all our sexual energy through a process of respiration, imagination, and mentalization. We are going to raise that energy through our spine to our brain, instead of expelling this available energy as we commonly do through orgasm or ejaculation. We will do this practice of creation through sex with a stable partner of the opposite sex, since just as the union man-woman is needed to create a child, a child, likewise to create what we can call the children of light, are those internal bodies, the participation of these two forces, man, woman, will be also needed. So the practice itself is very, very simple. After energetically clean our room and making a protection magic circle, and in later talks we will be learning how to correctly do the protections and the spells. We are going to learn that soon. But after energetic cleaning and closing the space, and after invoking those higher forces of our consciousness to help us in this practice, we will proceed to ignite the sexual fire between the couple with kisses and caresses, until we achieve a good erection in men and a perfect lubrication in the woman. Then we will proceed to the penetration, and the difference with the sexual practice to which we are accustomed to will be that instead of making rough movements to overexcite ourselves and to reach the point of orgasm, we are going to make gentle movements only when necessary to maintain the sexual power, and we are going to move the sexual energy through our spine by doing the following breathing process. Both in the same. In the case of the man, in the case of the woman is the same. We'll inhale after penetration. They will inhale deeply and slowly until filling the lungs. And then you are going to bring this air to your sexual gonads, which are in the man the testicles, and in the woman the ovaries. Once you bring your your air to your sexual gonads, you are going to retain the air. And when you retain the air, you are going to imagine how all that sexual energy, that like a golden thread, goes from the sexual gonads through the coccyx, and then it's going to ascend through the spine all the way to until it reaches the point between the eyes. Here we have like an explanation. This is what we are going to imagine, how this energy comes all the way through our spine until it reaches the point between the eyes. That's while we are retaining the air. Once the energy reaches this point, we are going to exhale the air by mantralizing the vowel I, but with the sound E, elongated like E. After that, you're going to repeat the exact same procedure. You are going to you're going to inhale again. You're going to bring the air to your lungs to fill them. You're going to bring your hair to your sexual gonads. Then you're going to retain the air, and you are going to imagine how the sexual energy arises from all the way through the spine until it reaches the point between the eyes. And the second time, you are going to mantralize the vowel A, but with the sound A, like and the third time, you do this exact same procedure, inhaling, retaining, imagining the energy to come all the way through your spine until it reaches this point, which is known as our third eye. And the third time, you're going to exhale, mantralizing the vowel O, but with the sound O, like O. So it's the first time the sound E, the second time the sound A, and the third time the sound O. The pronunciation of these sounds will generate a specific vibration on our energy that will activate the superior capacity of this sexual creative energy. And as I was saying, if at any time sexual potency drops, that means the erection in men or the lubrication in the woman, if it drops, you just need to make gentle movements to regain potency. This practice can be extended for as long as a couple wants it. So you can be raising all your sexual energy all the time you want, and for as long as the sexual, or as long as you have sexual potency. And as soon as the potency is completely finished, passing, I don't know, 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, depending of the amount of sexual potency that you have, until all this energy is uploaded. And when the potency is completely finished, then because all the energy has already been transmuted, then the practice will end. That is the practice of the sexual transmutation. You see, it is very simple, but actually it's a very, very good practice, and it's very important, so we can feel ourselves of energy, so we can start to regenerate ourselves with our own energy. It is important to consider not to bath until 2 hours after doing this practice, because even if we don't see it at first, powerful electromagnetic forces or energy moves in us, and if we bath immediately it will affect us. So we need to wait at least 2 hours before taking a shower. It is also important not to use contraceptives, since they isolate and affect the creative power of our sexual energy. And we must bear in mind that this practice itself is a natural control of fertility, because the success of the practice will be always withdraw from it without reaching orgasm and ejaculation. That means withdraw without spilling our energy. As I was saying, we will be talking and we will be deepening on this subject of the art of supersexuality in different talks. And let me now explain to you a little about the next pillar. That was the pillar of art. In the pillar of psychology, we will see that to get to know ourselves fully, it is necessary that we do a conscious work on our own psychology. We must become aware. We need to become aware that our energy and 97% of our essence is currently conditioned, is currently trapped within all our negative ways of being. All our negative way of reacting to any circumstance, our negative ways of thinking, of feeling, speaking, and acting, and that is what constitutes our ego. Our consciousness is deeply asleep because of that. And what is consciousness? That is important to explain a little. Consciousness is the full awareness of where we are, of the different dimensions that converge with this third dimension, here and now. Being conscious is to have the full consciousness of where we came from, of how many existences we have lived trying to reach that purpose for which we are here. And being conscious is having the full and real awareness of what that purpose is and having achieved it. The awakening of consciousness entails the awakening of many faculties, many powers, and many forces that are latent within each one of us, but that we don't know. But nowadays, it is called awakening consciousness to the simple fact of realizing that the world is an illusion, and that we came to this world for something more than simply being born, reproducing, and dying. But actually, awakening consciousness is much more. It is reaching one's total self-discovery and inner creation. It is becoming one with one's own divine being. Then we will see that awakening, or the awakening of consciousness, is not a passive process of just accepting things, but that involves a conscious effort to make an inner revolution that leads us to awaken the consciousness of its millenary lethargy and free it from all the ego that is currently manifesting in us in each of our actions. We need to make ourselves our own psychologist, because actually nobody can really know all the intricate recesses of our own psychology better than ourselves. We must decide to make a total and definitive internal change that will lead us to liberation. And for this, we must start by realizing all the egoic manifestations that occur in us at every moment. And to do this, we must begin to observe ourselves. We need to begin to direct the attention to our inner world, keeping us in a state of mindfulness of what is happening inside of us, here and now. We need to become aware of what am I thinking and why am I thinking that. I need to be aware of what am I feeling and why am I feeling that. I need to be aware of why am I acting like that. Who is actually acting right now inside of me? When we begin to observe ourselves fully, to start to direct our attention to our inner world, to see what's happening inside of me, a very interesting phenomenon will occur, and that is that we are going to divide ourselves between the observer and the observed. We will appreciate that whoever is observing, whoever observes all the internal processes is one and is always the same, is actually our consciousness. While those who constantly operate this human machine are many and are always variable. We are going to observe that at one moment we are sad, like we can see here, but at other moment we are happy, and another moment we can be just furious, at other moment we can be worried, and at another moment we can be, I don't know, lustful or in love or whatever this guy is. And thus we are being carried from one moment to another by the way of being that manifests itself in the moment. Many times our ways of beings manifest according to the circumstance that we are living. So sometimes I'm living a sad situation and a sad way of being manifests in me. Sometimes I'm living a happy situation and a happy way of being manifests in me. But other times they just express themselves, let's say, very despite the circumstance. So sometimes I'm having a sad situation and I'm feeling like making jokes or laughing, and sometimes I'm living a happy situation like a party or something like that, and I'm actually feeling sad. So we see that all those ways of beings manifest through us without any control, just because. And why they manifest in us? To constantly waste our energy. And what happens? That most of the times they are leading us to make mistakes, to constantly waste our energy and to harm others and to harm ourselves. That's because we are not conscious. That's because we are all the time letting all our ego or our negative ways of things to manifest within us. We are going to discover that each way of being within us is a person itself, with its particular way of thinking, feeling, talking, and acting. Like in a moment we are a very kind and a very positive people, and at that moment we act, we talk, we feel, and we think in an optimistic and in a very pleasant way. But at another moment, when irritated way of being manifest within us due to any situation or despite the situation, our way of thinking, our way of feeling, acting, and speaking will change radically. And it is precisely this internal egoic multiplicity what doesn't allow our consciousness or our conscious part to manifest in us. And each one of these way of beings that we can call, as I said, our psychological eyes or our psychological defects are the ones that we have to discover, and we are going to discover them by self-observing, and we are going to judge them until we get to comprehend that it is a defect, that it is a wrong way of being, and that it needs to be eradicated from us. And we are going to eliminate each one of them from our interior, so that virtues of the soul that are our consciousness can be born in us. For example, when we begin to work on all the aspects of our anger, we will develop true patience. When we work on our laziness, we will develop diligence. When we work our greed, we will develop honesty. When we work our lust, we will develop chastity. When we work our selfishness, we will develop within ourselves true love, or the ability to really love, and so on. When we manage to discover in ourselves each of our wrong way of things, and we decide to reflect on them, understand how they are stealing our energy, how they are leading us to act in an unconscious way, and we begin to eliminate each of these wrong ways of being from within, we will see how true interior change will begin to happen, and a real process of awakening will start within ourselves. With this practice that I am about to explain, which is called psychological death, we will achieve the elimination of our ego to free all our consciousness, which is currently trapped in it. The process to release our consciousness is also very, very simple. But as I was saying before, it involves a personal commitment to ourselves. We can practice it at any time, and it's about observing ourselves to discover any of those wrong ways of being that are manifesting, as I said, in our mind, in our emotion, or in our sex, for example. When we discover by self-observing ourselves, when we discover a thought, an emotion, a desire to react in this or that way, when we discover any sensation, an emotion, we are going to judge it. We are going to start living in a reflective way. We are going to start filtering if that which is going to manifest in me is it coming from my consciousness or is coming from my ego. How can I know that? Because consciousness is love. Consciousness is wisdom. Consciousness is justice. And when it comes from the ego, it only wants to manifest, to feed on our energy, and to lead us to lose that state of self-perception, that state of mindfulness. So consciousness will always lead me to act from the here and now, and to act with love in benefit of others. Ego will always lead me to go away from my self-perception state, will always lead me to fantasize, to remember, to project, and to harm others and to harm myself. So, once we have understood that it is a defect that is manifesting within us, or that wants to manifest because we feel or we could observe the desire that is raising to do this or to do that, and therefore we understand that it must be eradicated from our interior, we are going to ask that self-conscious part in us to eliminate from our interior that wrong way of being. Our consciousness has two aspects. It has a masculine and a feminine aspect. And the masculine aspect of our consciousness is internal wisdom. We will see it as our internal father. We will see it as our guide, as our internal guru. And in its feminine aspect, it is love and it is power. And we will see it as our divine mother. This I have here is a Hindu representation of that part of our being or deity that is our particular divine mother. So what are we going to do once we discover, for example, a sad feeling, or if we, by self-observing, discover an anguish emotion, or an envy thinking, or a lustful reaction, or a laziness habit, or an angry state? What are we going to do? We are going to invoke our divine mother to eliminate every aspect in us that we want to eradicate. We can do it with a simple mental request that if we give it a chance to try it, we will realize the powerful effect it will have on the elimination of every defect that we discover and prosecute. We just need to mentally ask our divine mother, for example, mother of mine, eliminate this defect, or divine mother, kill me this eye, or wherever we feel comfortable making that request to eliminate each of our multiple wrong ways of being. This way, by self-observing, by judging, and by asking for death, we will get rid of all the egoic manifestations, and we will be liberating our consciousness. You must remember that in every wrong way of being within ourselves is trapped a portion of our essence. By doing so, we will receive comprehension about that self, and that comprehension will light us so we can observe every time more and more details of that defect, so we can increasingly liberate more and more consciousness. So I repeat, it's simple, is self-observing, is discovering each one of our wrong ways of being that wants to manifest in us, in our mind, in our emotions, in our sex, in our when speaking or when acting, in the sensations in our bodies, because sometimes we feel like, for example, afraid, and that is a psychological defect, and we must work on it, and we must eliminate it so we can so the virtue of the courage, or the real courage, or the conscious courage can be born in us. We, for example, when feeling afraid, we can feel on our flesh like it is like we are, I don't know, cold, getting cold, or we feel like I don't know, like my chest hurts or something like that. Each of these defects or each of those details can also be eliminated. You just need to give it a try to that mental request, Divine Mother, eliminate this defect, and you are going to see how this is going to be disappearing from you. Several of our talks will deal with psychology issues, and in each one we will see tools to go deeper and deeper into our own mind. So that was the pillar of psychology. To end, let me explain the last pillar of wisdom on which self-knowledge is based, and it is mysticism. And mysticism is all about developing love. Love for the inner work that we are doing and for the external work in favor of all our brothers of humanity. We need to start developing a love for this work we are doing, for the work itself, just because we begin to experience the reality of our own particular being. Just because we are experimenting the results of the practices, and we are proving all this true because of the changes we are experimenting in our lives due to our internal work. And actually, this is hard because we are living all our lives thinking that just the external goals are important, just such as getting money or being famous or having prestige. But when we begin, for example, to take the practice of astral projection and to achieve the astral projection, and we begin to do our researches in the astral world, or when we begin to have a communication with our own being, and when we make every day the effort to remember and to interpret our dreams and our astral or conscious astral experiences, when we begin to negotiate our karmas and our recurrences, when we begin to see results in the practices of the psychological death, because we no longer react as we did before, because now every situation in life has become an opportunity to discover and transform yourselves. When you begin to experience the multiple benefits of saving your energy and making a wise use of it, when you begin to experience this knowledge, to live it, to experience the reality of your inner world, when we begin to have a process of spiritual awakening, then you will realize, because we realize that the things of this world do not have as much value as we believed, and there a desire of to help others is born in us. So they also have the opportunity to wake up, so they don't reach the end of their lives without knowing what the very purpose of their existence is. Mysticism is experienced directly in the sacrifice for humanity, when in a disinterested way and without any distinction of race or gender or color or status or whatever, we give this knowledge to everyone, but in its pure form, without mixing it, without adding or taking anything away from it, so that everyone, if they wish so, can come to know themselves. We must remember that, as we can see here, love is not possible without actions. Because actually I can say I love everyone, I love humanity, but if I don't do something active, positive, to help the humanity to awaken, actually I'm not loving, because love is only shown through the action. And that was the last pillar. If you have any question or any comment, please write it down. To end this talk or this introduction to self-knowledge, let's see what are the objectives that are pursued with this of knowing ourselves. What are we going to achieve if we embark on this journey to self-knowledge? Well, we are going to achieve the self-realization of our being. That means that we are going to get rid of all our egoic part, and we are going to become one with one's own divinity. This inner work that this course this course invite us to do also has as its objectives the regeneration of the human being, the complete liberation of all our consciousness, the creation, as we were talking about, of the existential bodies of the being that will allow us to have conscious presence in all dimensions of nature, as well as to know the higher dimensions of nature. But also, we are going to get to the knowledge of all the universal laws, and by freeing ourselves of all our egoic multiplicity and developing and integrating in us all those forces and all that consciousness, we are going to achieve sacred individuality. I really extend you, or sincerely extend you, the invitation to all, so that if this introduction has been of your interest, English is not my first language, as you can see, you continue to attend these talks that we will be broadcasting every Sunday through this page. Next week, we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic. We are going to talk about what is death, what happens to our soul when our physical body dies. We are going to talk about past lives, about the different types of death, and about what dies and what doesn't die when the physical body dies. That for next Sunday. And this has been the introductory talk to this self-knowledge course. If you have, as I said, any question or comment related to this topic or related to the course itself, you can write them in the chat, and we will be answering them. And if you get to this live after this live video, it doesn't matter, you can write your questions or comments, and we also be solving them in the chat. So that's been all for today. Thank you for joining us, and bye. See you next week.